Ethereum has been closing the gap, of course, because of the ETH ETF. We've seen pumps, obviously, from that. Bitcoin sits at just below 68K right now. ETH is right about 3,800. So we were pretty much right there last week when we were speaking, I believe, because we talked about that PulseChain sacrifice wallet having the 170,000 ETH and it basically being right back where it bought now at these prices. So it's $646 million USD, if anybody's wondering. So that's where we are with Bitcoin now. We do have ETH starting to close the gap because of the ETH ETF, and that's what we've really wanted to see for like our ecosystem and frankly all of altcoins. We've been talking about it. I mean, Ethereum is really going to be the ship that raises all tide that raise what you know what I'm saying, lifts all boats. And we need to see ETH kind of pump to really see a lot of the alts fly off. Now that doesn't mean that some altcoins have not already pumped hardcore over the last year. Some have. And, that's one thing I'll say as like, even though we're entrenched in the PulseChain ecosystem, I realize that we have been in a bull market and some coins have done really well so far. Now, PulseChain isn't the only one that hasn't had its day yet. There's many others that have not either. But, it's not like it's not like things haven't pumped. Some things definitely have. I just think that when Ethereum starts to, like, Ethereum's really not even gotten near its previous all-time high of 4,800 yet. So what do you make of where BTC and ETH are at right now, just in terms of time, what we may see the rest of this year, which we've talked about a lot, and how specifically I'm more interested in Ethereum. I'm really sick of Bitcoin because it kind of took the show for the first half of the year here. But with Ethereum, now that the ETF is here, will we see, like, people have talked about a 20% correction or a sell-off after the fact? It's been a week almost. We haven't quite seen that yet, but we haven't seen up only either. So what do you think of that for Ethereum?
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of uncertainty right now. I mean, you can see by the RSI, it's just kind of hanging out. It hasn't done a whole lot. And it did get to the point where it was overbought, and it started to cool off. The cool thing is, though, when it cools off, it kind of stays stagnant, and that's okay. The RSI can go down while we still stay at these levels, to give it some more the strength, at least. Ideally, we want to see it kind of come back down into this 50 range, so that it can take another pump on the way up, before it does become overbought again, and it'll cool off. But that is normal for this cycle, and especially because of the ETF that we're kind of expecting. So, with the news of that, I figured we would see a little bit more of a pump. But maybe it was because it was already in the overbought territory that we didn't. I'm not sure. So, we are definitely closing the gap with the Bitcoin Ethereum ratio as well. So, I mean, it's looking good. Actually, it's still looking rather strong. In fact, like I said, it does need to cool off a little bit. So I could see a little bit more sideways movement before people either, sell the event. I don't know if they will or not. I do see a pump coming though.
I do too. I mean, the most important thing is the higher time frame, and I mean, it's definitely going to pump. I mean, this is Richard Hart. I mean, I know everybody wants to crap all over him right now, but I mean, like, he has been hammering away at this ETH ETF, and it's obviously the most likely cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin to get an ETF, and then it comes way ahead of schedule. And he was panned widely by really his own community, for, not nobody knows who made the purchase of the Ethereum, but people panned the PulseChain wallet that bought all that Ethereum. And here we are, I don't think it was 60 days later or so, and then it got back to the price that it was already at. Now, right. Hindsight's 2020, and it's like, oh yeah, why did you buy a 3K or something like that? I mean, yeah, it's perfect to say that in hindsight, but you don't know how these things are going to pan out, and just how hard they're going to pump. Like, no one was expecting that this was going to get past this ETF in May. Everybody was expecting this to happen in August. So here we are, and it has. So, when you have that amount of money to allocate to something, do you care about every little penny that you can scrape necessarily? I mean, yet would it be nice to have bought $3,000 Ethereum instead of 30? Absolutely, yeah. Would have been nice to buy all the Pulse that I hold at the bottom of it. I mean, like, it's hindsight's always 2020, but I think he looks at
Well,
that pretty damn
so,
smart right now.
something else you need to think about is maybe he was advised not to do anything at that point, um, only because his lawyers may have said, "Let's see kind of where they're going. Let's see if they're going to put a freeze on any of these wallets, before you decide to do anything like that." So there's
Right.
possibility that he was instructed not to. Everybody blames his timing, but I don't know that it was all necessarily his timing. Whether he had kind of, I don't want to say permission to do anything, but you know what I mean? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So
Yeah.
that's a possibility as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. But either way, I mean, long term, it's going to be good for Ethereum. I mean, I don't know if, I know we keep going back to Richard here, but I am interested in the guy's thoughts on like where the market may top out at and everything. And he had that tweet a couple of months ago where he was talking about 240K BTC, which, inherently would mean like a $20,000 plus possibly Ethereum. I mean, if that happens, everybody's doing very, very well. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody everywhere, basically. So I don't know if that's what we get. I mean, we have seen kind of irrational, unexpected BTC performance so far off of the ETF. I mean, we have. I mean, no, again, like I just said with Ethereum and the ETF getting approved, nobody thought Bitcoin would be so bullish at the beginning of this year, and it has been off the ETF. So,
Yep.
could we see Ethereum do the? I'm going to get a DM from somebody getting angry at me for saying this. Sorry. But Sami's been talking about like that Bitcoin did what I think like a 90% move or something like that. Off of the ETF. I mean, if that happened to Ethereum, we'd be at over a $7,000 Ethereum by the end of the year. And I
Yeah.
mean, that would put things in a very interesting place. So, yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of that. But
Well, no, something else we didn't think about or mention. I don't want to say didn't think about, but consensus is also happening right now, right?
oh yeah,
So that's going on in San Antonio, Austin, somewhere in Texas.
hmm
They're having their Ethereum convention. It's called Consensus.
hmm
Usually, when that thing lets out, there is uh, bullish activity. Because people come out of there. Just like any kind of event for let's take for example a multi-level marketing company. They have
right,
these big conventions for everybody, and everybody comes out of there all fired up and ready to sell their product and push this and push that, and it does have a positive effect. So I think Consensus will also kind of have that similar effect afterwards, so it should be interesting.
yeah. Crypto Coffee, if I'm not mistaken, is down there. I think I
Yep.
saw. So
Coffee
very
is
cool.
there. Gary Woods is
I just
there.
saw. Yeah.
Maddie is there. I forget. There were a couple others that I had heard names, but I forget at this point who they were. But yeah, there's several PulseChain advocates there, so
Right.
should be interesting.
Definitely interesting. Good to have advocates there for sure. We've had a lot of that, like at Mar-a-Lago and all these Trump events and stuff with PulseChain
Mhm.
people too. So good stuff indeed. And we do have some Trump thoughts coming up here soon, which is going to be very interesting. So stay tuned for that. So that's BTC and ETH. ETH getting very, very interesting here. We're going to keep our eyes on that for the next 2 years probably. So